Okay, let's take a trip back in time, way back to the year 1840. America is standing on the edge of this massive, massive change. It's shifting from a country of farms to a country of factories. But to really understand what that was like, we're not going to look at the big names, the presidents or generals. Nope, we're going to follow the life of one single, ordinary teenage boy. So let's just ask it straight up. What was it really like for a teenager back then? I mean, forget the black and white photos and the stuff you see in movies. What was the day-to-day grind? What were the choices they had to make? The pressures they were under? What did it feel like to be standing right at this huge historical crossroads? And this is our guy, our guide to this world. Meet Henry Arnold White. In 1840, he's just 16 years old, and he's living with his family in a little rural town called East Killingly, Connecticut. His story, well, it's our window into a world that's pretty much vanished. What makes Henry's story so perfect for us is that he is literally standing between two completely different worlds. His life represents this choice that an entire generation of Americans was facing, a decision between the past and the future. And here are the two paths laid out right in front of him. On one side, you've got his dad's world, the farm. That's a life of tradition, right? It's all about the rising sun, the changing seasons, the skills passed down for generations. But on the other side, you've got the factory. This whole new world, humming with machines run by the clock and offering something totally new, a cash wage. These are two completely different ways to live a life. So let's zoom in on his world. Here's the White family. His dad, Jonathan, is a farmer. He'd actually just moved the whole family from Rhode Island because he was hoping the soil would be better over in Connecticut. Then you've got his mom, Miranda, his younger brother, Albert, and his little sister, Harriet. They're this tight-knit group, all working together to try and make this new farm work. All right, let's really step into Henry's shoes for a minute and talk about the farm. And let me be clear, this was a life of just unbelievably hard physical labor. I mean, his day started long before the sun even thought about coming up. First things first, you had to milk the cows, feed the animals. Then the second there was enough light, he was out in the fields with his dad and his brother. And their big job at this point was just clearing more land, which is grueling, back-breaking work, pulling giant tree stumps and heavy rocks out of that stubborn New England soil. This quote from the source material just says it all, doesn't it? It makes his life feel so real. It's not just an idea. You can almost feel the blisters. This was a physical life, and it was etched right onto his body. His hands basically told the story of his day. Every single day. And all that labor, well, it came before pretty much everything else. Now, Henry could read and write and do some basic math, but his days in a formal schoolhouse were pretty much over. At 16, his work on the family farm was just too valuable. He wasn't a student anymore, he was a full-time worker. And that was totally normal for most boys his age. But while his hands were deep in the dirt, his eyes, and probably his ears too, were being drawn to something else. There was this other sound, echoing through the river valley nearby, and it was the sound of a completely different kind of future. You see, along the Quinebaug River, these huge cotton mills were popping up. They were this brand new, powerful force changing the landscape itself. And Henry, he was completely captivated by them. He'd actually take the time to walk over to the mills just to stand there and watch them run. Just imagine the contrast for a kid like him. He's spending his days in a world of muscle and mud and sweat, and then he sees this. He's watching these weavers, their hands moving with this practiced, almost mechanical precision, guiding these incredible machines that turned simple thread into yards and yards of finished cloth. It was a world of rhythm and technology that was just a universe away from farming. Now, of course, Henry's life wasn't only about this huge choice between the farm and the factory. I mean, he was still a teenager. His world was also being shaped by his community, by his faith, and, yeah, by the beginnings of romance. For a family like his in 1840, church wasn't just a place you went for an hour on Sunday. The local Baptist meeting house, which was less than a mile's walk away, was the absolute center of their social world. It's where you saw your neighbors, caught up on all the news, and really important for a teenager, it was where you met other young people. And it was probably at church, or maybe some other community event, that he met a girl named Amy Frances Oatley. Back in 1840, she was just 14 years old. Well, that first meeting blossomed into something more, and just 4 years later, they got married. So while he's wrestling with what to do with his life's work, his personal future is starting to take shape too. Okay, so this brings us to the big moment, the farm boy, totally fascinated by the mills, building a life in his community. He is standing at a crossroads, and the path he picks is going to define not just his own life, but the lives of his future family. So here it is, the big question we've been building up to this whole time. What did he do? Did he follow in his father's footsteps, working the same land his family had just sacrificed so much for? Or did he take a leap of faith into that new, mechanical world, the one that was humming with the sound of the future? And it's so cool. We don't have to guess. The historical record gives us a clear-cut, definitive answer. Just look at this. It's the U.S. Census from only 10 years later, 1850. Henry A. White, age 26, and his occupation? It doesn't say farmer. It says weaver. He made his choice, and by 1850, Henry's life was completely transformed. He was a weaver, a full-fledged member of that industrial world that had fascinated him so much as a teenager. He was married to Amy, and they'd already started their own family, with 3 young daughters. And this is why the story of one 16-year-old kid from Connecticut is actually so important. Henry's personal journey from the farm to the factory, it wasn't unique. It was the story of America itself, a story that was playing out in thousands of small towns and families all across the country. His choice is the perfect snapshot of a nation in the middle of a massive economic and social revolution. So that kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. Henry stood at a crossroads between the agricultural age and the industrial age. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What great crossroads are we standing at today? And how are the choices we're all making, the big ones and the small ones, going to define what a census taker writes about us and about our world a decade from now?